Hey everybody, I want to show you a game from 1973 between Boris Spassky, who was the newly uh, ex-world champion after losing to Bobby Fischer at the time, with the white pieces, and with the black pieces was Mikhail Tal, who was also a former world champion. And Tal had been world champion about 13 years prior, but was still very, very strong uh, at this time in his career. Actually, he was one of those players that just remained very strong to the end of his life in 1992. This is a good game. Nimzo Indian, we're going to get right into it again. Boris Spassky with the white pieces versus Mikhail Tal with the black pieces. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, and bishop g5. And this is known as the Leningrad variation. Um, this line is kind of unusual, but Spassky was known to play this line on and off pretty much throughout his career. Um, it's one of those lines where it's not, critical to the, variation, but it's one of those reliable sidelines that if you master it and study it a lot, that the better the player who can understand, the variations better, can come out on top. Top plays h6, and this is a good move to play because when the bishop drops back to h4, as happened in the game, um, the bishop is cut off from returning back to the queen side. All right, to defend, if need be. So now this gives black more bite in his plan of playing, say, like moves like c5 and sorry about that arrow. Uh, Playing moves like c5 and queen a5, basically attacking, um, on the queen side. All right, and then even in some cases, an attack g5 is possible against this bishop right here. So bishop h4 and c5, d5, and now Tal plays b5. And this is something you can expect from a player like Tal. Very sharp, sacrificing the pawn to just open up the position and gain uh, central pawn preponderance. All right, and this kind of reminds me of the Blumenfeld gambit. All right, so D takes e6. So Spassky just says, "Hey, I'm gonna accept the pawn." All right. If he doesn't accept the pawn, black basically gets like a free shot against white center. Um, One line that can be played is like e4. Right. This guy's pin. So g5, bishop g4. Now knight takes e4 and bishop e5. Okay, play is pretty sharp there. Castles, queen h5, d6, bishop d3, knight takes c3, queen takes h6. Oh my goodness. Knight e4, discover check. King f1, d takes e5, bishop takes, threatening mate again. f5, and then queen g6, and there's a draw by repetition here. Okay, and this actually happened in the game Yermolinsky-Shabalov in 1996 in New Jersey. So that gives you just a taste of what can happen and how sharp that is. That's why I say if this kind of line favors the player who is definitely well prepared, because the play is kind of abnormal, very sharp, and you can't just rely on a general feel for the position. Okay, so B5 and D takes E6, F takes E6, and now just accepting the pawn. C takes B5. Another idea that was tried at one time was E4, castle, E5, and then just simply Queen A5. All right, and that was no good either. If E takes F6, then just simply Bishop uh, takes here on C3. Okay, let's go back. So after F takes E6, C takes B5, and now D5. And now here's Tal pushing this pawn preponderance in the center. All right. Castle, E3, and Queen A5 is another way of handling the position, which is a little bit slower, basically building up pressure on the position with the pieces, than as opposed to just setting up the big pawn center right away, but just more or less restricting White's pieces, holding them back first, putting the pressure there. In other words, Tal's method, although there's nothing wrong with it, is more old school. Just throwing the pawns, the pawn wall up right away instead of just putting more pressure with the pieces on the position. So D5, E3 was played, castles, knight F3 from Spassky, and now Queen A5, and now black is just threatening knight E4. So bishop takes F6 from Spassky, rook takes F6, and now Queen D2, A6, and now B takes A6. Now Tal criticized this move, and he preferred B6 here, or bishop E2, A takes B5, and castle. All right, and he says that the capture on A6. Let's go back. He says the capture on A6 would be fine if black had to reply with bishop takes A6, as white would then be able to develop his king side without loss of time. In other words, bishop takes A6 and bishop takes A6, and then he could just castle. But black is not forced to help white out in this way. So after B takes A6, Tal just simply kept developing and played the move knight C6, just ignoring that pawn. And now this bishop has to just sit there for another move. So now we can see for the pawn, black has a great initiative, great lead in development here. So we could say that black's compensation is even more than the pawn at this point. And he is threatening D4 here. Okay, so he's threatening D4, and then E takes D4, followed by rook takes F3. Okay, let's just make a random move here. So D4, E takes D4, and then rook takes F3. And this is just brutal. So his pawn sacrifice is worked out very well. Spassky plays bishop E2. And now D4. E takes D4, and here comes Tal. Bang! Rook takes F3. Nice exchange sacrifice. And basically, the simple logic is that the knight is doing more to control the center than the rook. So bishop takes F3, C takes D4, and this is looking crazy right now for white. Castle. D takes C3, B takes C3, bishop takes C3, queen up to D6, rook takes A6, and got to be alert tactically. Bishop takes A1, simply loses. The queen takes A6. So after queen D6, then rook takes A6, bishop takes C6, and bishop B4. And this is the point of Tal's combination that he started with when he played the move D4, is that this bishop is going to be lost. And so now black is going to have a material advantage of 2 bishops versus a rook and a pawn. Okay, so queen B8, rook takes C6, rook AC1, bishop C5, and now rook C2. And now white wants to try to exploit black on the C file. The problem with this plan is the F2 square is weak. Alright, queen A4, queen B3, queen F4. So you see now we have 2 pieces on this square. Queen G3 from Spassky, queen F5 from Tal, attacking the rook, and now rook FC1. So there it is, trying to give Tal problems on the C file. Bishop B7, and now queen F3, queen G5, queen B3, and now simply rook C7, G3, and now Tal plays one of his famous sacrifices, simply just bishop takes F2. Of course the rook cannot take, this rook is will be captured. King takes F2, queen F6, check, king E1, queen E5, check, king F1. Now if rook E2, then just rook takes C1, and king D2, and queen G5. So king F1, and now Tal plays bishop A6, check. Okay, now this move is inaccuracy because he could have just forced the winning game by just playing queen F5, check, king G1, and then queen E4, just lining up on the diagonal. Bishop h6 check. King g1, queen d4 check. King g2, queen e4 check. King g1, bishop b7. So now he has kind of the same setup. h4, queen h1, king f2, and rook f7 check. King e2 and queen e4 check. And now white is going to lose at least a rook here. So here's Spassky resigned. All right. So what can we take from this game? One, one that of course Tal was was an awesome player. Let's just go back. I like to leave the thought on the board. One is that the mobile central pawn majority is no joke. As we see, Tal sacrificed. Tal sacrificed in the in the opening a pawn, and just going back to it. And this might remind you of like Benko, Blumenfeld game. It's a lot of different systems where this B pawn is jettisoned, and just want to go to that position right there. So that central pawn majority, and the key word is mobile. That is very dangerous thing to have, especially when the king is still in the center, because those advancing pawns are just like a big wave, like a tsunami, just coming, and as they get closer and closer, just increase, the pressure in the position. Okay, I mean, so that's one thing is respect the the big mobile pawn center. You don't want it to be a fixed center, because then it's just a target for your opponent. Once it gets stopped, then it can't move. But when it can move, very very deadly. What's the other thing? Oh, the two bishops. Okay, the two bishops aiming at the king. Okay, on the on the diagonals, very dangerous. As you saw at the end, when bishop takes f2 and the other bishop's on b7. Those type of patterns are good patterns to practice and get in your in your arsenal. Bishop on b7, bishop on c5, or anywhere on the a7 g8 diagonal. Those bishops working together, controlling the dark and light squares. Pointed at the king. So and as you can see, it's very dangerous because it looked like Spassky had the f2 square guarded, right? It looked like he took precautions against it and everything was good. And next thing you know, bishop takes f2, king is exposed, and then just a nice attack from Tal. So I hope you enjoyed that game. Please like, subscribe, and donate if you can, and I'll try to answer all questions and queries, and I'll see you on the next video.